Relations with Cuba, and since then, embassies have reopened and travel to Cuba has increased dramatically. Our senior political reporter Michael Putney is in the newsroom now with a look at what's been achieved and, Michael, what lies ahead.
Calvin, after more than half a century of isolation and animosity, the U.S. and Cuba engaged fully this year, made some real progress.
Stars and Stripes flying in Havana at the U.S. Embassy for the first time in 55 years, and Local 10 was there. We were also in Washington as the Cuban flag was raised at their embassy, a necessary step toward normalization. Helping the process and instrumental in bringing both sides together, Pope Francis, first with a visit to Cuba and then to the U.S. with a healing message.
I believe that we can do more to support the Cuban people and promote our values through engagement.
The president has led the move to normalize relations, meeting twice with Raul Castro, talking with him on the phone. In a statement today, the president said, "Today, the Stars and Stripes again fly over our embassy in Havana. Today, more Americans are visiting Cuba and engaging the Cuban people than at any time in the last 50 years. We continue to have differences with the Cuban government, but we raise those issues directly, and we will always stand for human rights."
The whole purpose of our engagement policy is to be in a better position to advocate for our interests and our values. And of course, among our values are human rights.
There's a major development today on travel. Regular air service is now permitted and should start sometime next year. This American Airlines pilot was flying the Cuban flag today. Local 10 showed you Cuba coast to coast, a month-long series of reports showing how the average Cuban gets along, most poor, most proud, and eager for better relations with America.
In fact, hopes are high on both sides of the Florida Straits, and a new poll out tonight that we have seen exclusively says a solid majority of Cuban Americans support improved relations. We are in the newsroom this evening. Lori, we'll send it back to you.
What a year it's been, Michael. Thank you. And although much has changed in Cuba, some say the human rights abuses continue. Our team coverage continues now with Local 10 News reporter Hatzel Vela.
Well, Lori, human rights continues to be the driving issue, especially for critics of the Obama administration who say that we gave too much and haven't received much in return.
Que este año ha sido un año de represión.
Berta Antunes says it's been a year of repression. Antunes is a human rights activist who lives here and is the sister of Jorge Luis Garcia Perez Antunes, a high-profile dissident on the island who was a political prisoner 17 years.
Estamos convencidos de que la represión va a ir aumentando.
We're certain, she says, repression will continue. The numbers back up her claim. Just the first 2 weeks this month, there were reportedly more than 1,500 arrests. This year, around 9,000, according to the Cuban Democratic Directorate, who organized this news conference and tracks human rights arrests on the island. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has publicly said he's concerned about the arrest.
Sabe que nadie le va a pedir cuenta, pues.
The Cuban government knows no one will hold them accountable, she says, and they're relying on renewed U.S. relations and acting with impunity. The group reminds us every Sunday, dozens, if not hundreds, who peacefully march like the ladies in white get arrested.
We will end an outdated approach.
On the anniversary of the president's announcement, we also hear about commerce, the realities of doing business in Cuba. Right now, Cuban laws do not allow corporations to own a majority of shares in their companies.
It's not investing in Cuba, it's investing with the Cuban military to continue to oppress the Cuban people.
This morning, the president got a letter for more than 100 political prisoners, former Cuban political prisoners, who are urging him to change his policy towards Cuba in light of the repressions. For now, reporting live in the video port, Hatzel Vela, Local 10 News.